And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Lakers insider for Lakers Daily. Joining me tonight on this fine Sunday evening, Sunday night, the first night of free agency, is my dude, Yosi. Dude, like, we were talking today, we were joking earlier about how, like, you were happy that, free agency is moving a little slower this time around and how you actually got to eat today. Like, that's that. It's such a crazy thing to say about any day. Are you okay? Like, blink if you're concerned for your well-being.
No, this is the best I've felt on June 30th in years. Just the slow rollout. It's nice. There's just like more time to think about this stuff instead of the flood of 50 tweets as soon as 3 p.m. Pacific hits. And there's even like downtime. Like, okay, there's some minimum signings mostly today. It's like Luke Cornett, Mason Plumlee, that stuff. So I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
maybe I'll like just kind of relax a little bit. Just I don't have to like get my brain fried an hour into it. It's been nice.
Man, it's just, I've obviously had a busy, crazy. Everybody has had, but the idea of, like, man, I'm so happy I get to eat. Like, that's just that is insane to me. Yossi, I want, before we get out of here, I want you to plug everything that you're doing right now. Before we get going, because you do incredible work. You are my go-to for cap questions. I've bugged you at least 4 times today, and at some point you were just like, "Hey, can we just do a show?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." But where can everybody find all of your work? I want to make sure that we properly send people to where you're doing your work now.
So the big one is my YouTube page. I am now mostly doing videos about the salary cap on YouTube, and I'm probably going to be doing a lot of stuff over the month as I just kind of react to a lot of the moves, all the bigger picture stuff. So that's under my name, Yossi Gozlan, and you can follow me on Twitter right now. I'm reacting to all the transactions as they happen. Also, my name, Yossi Gozlan. And that is the oh, and then I have my salary sheets on capsheets.com. You could see all they're all accurate cap sheets. I'm updating them as moves happen to make them as accurate as possible, and I'll be updating them in real time over the next few weeks.
Like I said, there's just nobody more organized, I think, on this stuff than you are, and I appreciate you hopping on during this super busy time. Right now, basically, everybody I feel like is waiting for two major dominoes to fall. Three, I guess, if you're the Lakers, right? Three, specifically for the Lakers, D'Angelo Russell trade. That I think is going to, kind of get everything kind of rolling specifically for the Lakers. But the league as a whole is waiting for Paul George to announce on his podcast that he's going to Philadelphia. Like, that's what I had a theory, because you and I were talking before we went live about, I was just kind of wondering, like, is there, I've been kind of asking around, is anything actually going on there? You had a theory, though, as it pertains to tampering rules and the rollout of this information. So why don't we kind of start there, and then we can go through the machinations of where Paul George might wind up, what that would look like, potentially a Lakers Paul George conversation, if you're open to that too. But what's your theory on what's taking so long here?
Well, it's maybe like they're just league's a little more strict now, and it's interesting how even with free agency being pushed up the negotiation window where players can now negotiate with their teams, uh, a lot of people probably thought, well, maybe this flood of news would come out as soon as the Celtics won the title, and nothing came out really. And it's been a really slow rollout, which again I like for my own well being,
Yeah.
and. Uh, yeah, it just seems like generally like maybe there is more stuff already done, but just to play it safe, just maybe decisions are taking a little longer to be announced.
So when you gave me that, theory, which honestly very plausible, my brain started kind of working in its own weird way, because we saw the Clippers earlier announce that Paul George is not coming back. Thank you for your service, all that stuff. And You don't see that very often. And it kind of made me wonder if that was the Clippers, basically, because I remember like the Pacers once upon a time just straight up snitched on the Lakers for potential tampering. And it made me wonder if this was kind of like a dry snitch by the Clippers to basically like, look, he seemed to know where he was going on the morning of June 30th. Super weird, right? Like you guys, Adam, you're paying attention over here, right? Like weird, right? The timing that like we would know that he was gone definitely before free agency had barely even started. It just feels like a very Ballmer thing to do. It just feels like a very Clippersy, like dweeby thing to do. What do you think about my tinfoil hat theory here?
Well, I just that whole announcement is bizarre. I don't
So
recall
weird.
any ever team saying, "Hey, like this player's not coming back. Thank you for your service." Just
Before
that's
he's made a decision.
that's an interesting point you're making. If they are, I don't know if there is some type of angle on this on their end. I don't know what it could be, but uh, even just like bigger picture, I can't. I'm a little surprised the Clippers let things get to this point.
Yeah.
Especially considering everything they traded, like that screenshot, the OKC trade. Like you probably see it every day.
Yeah.
It lives in infamy, that the whole package, and now it's going to be even more infamous.
I saw people like standing for the Clippers, like, oh, it's a trade that everybody would have made. And it's like, look, man, you invest in Paul George at your own danger, right? Like at your own risk. Like that's a decision that you can make. And it did help them land Kawhi Leonard, but they sit here now 5 years later. Paul George is now no longer going to be a Clipper, and they don't have anything to show for it. Nothing. Not even a finals berth. It just happened. It was kind of a mess, and now it's over, i.e. life. That's how life kind of goes. But it's just like I saw that point being made, and I'm like, why are we patting them on the back for losing? Like, well, are people that in with like Lee Jenkins? Like, is Lee out there like getting people to what is going on? But no, I thought that was super weird.
Injuries.
What's that?
It never even took off. Like they had that one run, but then the last three
Yeah.
playoffs, Kawhi wasn't there. Paul George missed some of it.
Yeah,
Just
it was.
yeah,
They
never
never really
really
seemed to
understood
sync
it.
up. The part of it that really, really stood out to me is that like Paul George and Kawhi never really seemed simpatico, right? Like they never seemed in tune with each other. It was just kind of, it was coworkers, which at the end of the day, all these guys are. But in basketball, you kind of need to be a little bit more than that. Like the two superstars have to like appear to care about each other on your team. I thought that was really interesting. I have kind of wondered over the course of the day. This is not informed. I haven't heard anything on this front. I don't think that this. I still think Paul George is going to be a Sixer, but I did ask you what it would look like if the Lakers got in on this, and what that kind of a trade would look like, what it all would involve, what would the cap look like after the fact, what would LeBron need to sacrifice in order to do it. Were you able to kind of like comb through that at all?
Yeah, I do want to say though, just last part about the Clippers. I 100,000% agree with what you're saying about the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard dynamic. Like when you think about some of the great duos like LeBron and AD, for example, you can like just envision, you can just like close your eyes and think of so many different highlights between them two. I
Yeah,
cannot really recall like a specific moment on the
like not
court
even an alley oop.
that Paul George and Kawhi did something crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
not the most memorable duo like on the court. Like now that it's over, we'll see how we remember that. But yeah, as far as a potential Paul George trade to the Lakers, I have thought about in the sense that I've looked into in the past how the Lakers could get a guy as expensive as Trae Young. And I did do my Lakers video last month. I talked about what it would take for the Lakers to get a guy like Donovan Mitchell or Trae Young. Mainly not so much what they need to give up to like make a deal uh like some interesting to those teams, but more so how they can just work with all these apron rules, because it's not as easy bringing another guy as expensive as those guys and while paying Davis and LeBron as much as they are. And I did touch on the idea back then of LeBron maybe taking a pay cut to bring in a guy as expensive as Trae Young. So now that's out there. Number one, yeah, LeBron would need to take some type of a pay cut. How much? I don't know. As far as the salaries go, they would definitely need to just send back more than Paul George is making. But the only thing is it's different because unlike trading for Paul George, I mean Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell, they're under contract, so they can do that 100% match, and then they could exceed the first apron. Then you could spend another 11 million. That matters a lot towards fielding the roster. But
Yeah.
since Paul George is a free agent, you don't have that extra cushion. You'd be hard to cap to the first apron.
Yep.
So I'm not in. LeBron basically would need to take like a pretty significant pay cut. I haven't looked into the exact number. It's not a minimum or anything like that, but I don't think he'd be able to make 30 million. I know like it might have to be less than that.
Jeez.
While being able to like match for Paul George.
And he
Yeah, I mean,
turned
I'm
down
not able to
$50 million.
do that, but yeah, LeBron would need to take like even more substantial pay cut than he's currently expected to take.
Yeah, it was just something that kind of crossed my mind. I don't think under like the Clippers, I'm like 15% sure still employ Ty Lue because they didn't want the Lakers to employ him. I don't see the Clippers, like the Tim Kawakami of the Athletic apparently was reporting that the Warriors felt they made a competitive offer for Paul George in a sign and trade. And the Clippers said that they didn't want to send him to Golden State. So if that's how the Clippers feel about Golden State, I would imagine they probably feel pretty similarly about the Lakers. I don't think it's at all possible, but I do think it's like worthwhile to talk about that just so that people recognize what LeBron would have to give up to do almost anything that the Lakers are talking about doing. Right. Because, with Klay Thompson, the conversation right now is I've heard it is that the Dallas Mavericks think that they can sign and trade, or I guess it would be Golden State would be signing and trading Klay Thompson to Dallas, and he would slip into Tim Hardaway Jr.'s salary exception or trade exception. And then the conversation, I guess, for much of today between the two sides, Dallas and Golden State, has been draft compensation and potential player compensation. It's a little different with the Lakers, where I'm told that the Lakers, whether it's the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which would require a hefty financial sacrifice on LeBron's part, or signing and trading, or Golden State, I guess, signing and trading Klay Thompson for somebody like Rui, for example. And I guess Rui is making about $18 million. So I guess that would allow Klay Thompson to make around there too, versus just the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. What is the MTMLE set at right now with the new, because the cap is now like $1 million or $2 million lower than people thought.
So it's just under 13 mil. So
Okay.
they can give Klay up to like 4 for 40 or 4 for 55 with the mid level. And the Mavs have the advantage where technically the Clippers and Lakers could match whatever the Mavs have to offer in a sign and trade, but the Mavs also have they can easily just kind of take Klay Thompson in case the Mavs don't want a guy like Josh Green or Maxi Kleber back. They could just take him in with that trade exception they're set to generate. And then for Klay Thompson, he's making more money. He can get like, maybe another 10 mil or more in the total years. So they have got the financial advantage for both convincing Klay to come and for not making it so like hard on the Warriors to cooperate. Maybe they don't have to give up so much stuff. The Mavs are like out of second round picks. They gave up all the remaining second round picks. They have like one left after that Tim Hardaway Jr. trade. So for the Lakers, they can match like Klay Thompson to that amount. But yeah, they'd have to make it work through sign and trade. They have to send back some salaries, but like I don't know what players the Warriors, if any, they'd be interested in helping out, and if so, what would the Lakers have to give up to convince the Warriors to do so, or a third team for taking on these salaries? So they can do it. They can definitely match what the Mavs have to offer, but they have a lot more obstacles to making everyone happy that it would have to be involved.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier in the the pre free agency thing, the preview that I did earlier on the channel. Which, by the way, please do hit that subscribe button. If you guys are watching live on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge and leave a like and hit that subscribe button there as well. But it's like I said earlier, essentially the Lakers, at least initially, held some cautious optimism that maybe, just maybe, they could bring Klay Thompson into that non-taxpayer mid-level exception, and that they could, whether it was dumping D'Angelo Russell, whether it was making they're going to have to do it anyway. They're at a roster crunch anyway, so they're going to have to move. They're going to have to try to move some of their veteran minimum players who took their player options. That's going to have to happen anyway. But whatever it was, they felt that maybe they could free up enough money, and maybe LeBron sacrifices enough so that Klay could sign under that provision. The concern, though, obviously, is that, like, if Dallas has more to offer financially, that limits the Lakers' chance at bringing in Klay Thompson. So essentially, what I've basically been hearing is that Dallas was, and I believe still is, in the lead for Klay Thompson because they can offer more, but the Lakers have kind of looked into what they could do to maybe sweeten the pot for Klay. I also believe, this is not sourced this time, but I do believe that the Lakers are more hesitant than Dallas to promise a starting gig to Klay Thompson. And, the Lakers just today re-signed Max Christie to a 4-year, $32 million offer, which I thought was somewhat steep considering he didn't play basically at all last year, and it's all on potential. Not to say he can't exceed it or he won't live up to it. I just thought that number was kind of high, but that does kind of signal that they want the guy in the rotation a bunch. They also just drafted Dalton Connect at Klay Thompson's position. So, like, at the very least, I think the Lakers would like for there to be a competition for the starting gig, the starting gig at shooting guard. And I don't think Klay Thompson is interested in that. So, that could be another potential hangup, as well as all of the other stuff that we've been talking about. What have you thought about how quiet things have been here for the Lakers? Because there was there was kind of a flurry of information right at the right heading into free agency, and then we get the Max Christie re-signing, and then we're just kind of sitting here waiting. I have been told that the Lakers and Portland are in talks for Jerami Grant. Those talks have continued. And then I've also heard that the Lakers have been very active throughout the league, trying to find a new home for D'Angelo Russell. That trade market is not great, as evidenced by the fact he's still a Laker. But yeah, I'm curious what you've thought of how kind of quiet the Lakers have been here. Is there value, do you think, in sitting out the initial flurry?
I think I'm not quite shocked about the Lakers specifically, how quiet it's been for them. It's been quiet just all around. I think I don't know. Again, like, aside from potential, just like, hey, let's just you know not announce things right away. I guess there also is some dominoes to fall, mainly with Paul George. Maybe we
Yep.
could get a little more action once that's official. But as far as the Lakers, I kind of expected it. The only thing is that so far, like, some of who's I noticed, like, some of the targets, like, aside from Klay, a lot of guys that theoretically could have been like mid-level options. I can't really think who it was, but a lot of guys have been taken, like, over the first few hours. Um, like, and then as far as, but I don't think it's anything that's gonna hurt them, or I think their best path to improve the roster just through a standard trade. If they can get someone at the mid level, great. Like the only guys some guys I could see maybe coming, maybe Buddy Hield finally, Gary Trent. Like those are some guys I could see potentially fitting. I don't know if the Lakers just need another two guard, but just some guys I could see fitting the price range. But on top of that, maybe like you mentioned, these trade opportunities like Jerami Grant, if they can bring him in as well, maybe there is some kind of pathway that LeBron takes some sort of pay cut, and now I think you have a pretty much better roster than last year. There is a pathway to make all that happen. I think it's just a matter of how much picks the Lakers have to throw in, because they're most likely sending out some unwanted money. But I would say that I'm not too worried about how slow it's been, because ultimately I just feel that a normal just trade is the most likely way the Lakers will improve the roster.
Is there any deal? What are your thoughts on the max thing? Because when I said I thought it was a little steep initially, most of the people I've spoken to actually think it's good value, specifically because it's a 4-year deal. And on the back end of it, you're going to have the new TV deal money kicking in, and it will be a very cheap contract. I'm just nervous about giving a player a 4-year deal with so little actual production under their belt. By the way, totally understand it wasn't in Max Christie's control that he didn't offer up much production, because Darvin Ham, for whatever reason, decided he wasn't going to play him. But what did you think of the, like, from a cap perspective, what did you think of Max Christie's new contract?
So the thing that comes to mind is that the Lakers didn't have to be in this position to be paying Max Christie already, mainly because now they changed the rule where you can just give any second round pick a 3-4 year deal.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years ago, they gave Lonnie Walker the entire mid level, which I guess kind of worked out in a way that he helped them he did help a lot in their playoff run, but they could have maybe tried to save a portion of it so they can give Max Christie a 3rd year and he could be still making the minimum right now. So now on one hand, you're paying him now, which is a little bit of a problem given the Lakers' payroll concerns. But when you compare it to what some of these other recent players have been getting, like if you look at the guys that got rookie extensions last year, there were guys like Peyton Pritchard, Zeke Naji, all getting like basically what Max Christie got now. It's like very team friendly amount. So yeah, it seems quite high for a guy like Max Christie who barely played last year for the Lakers. But if he becomes a rotation player, that is a steal of a deal. Now,
Yeah.
the other thing that came to mind is when he signed this deal, it was, definitely came a lot higher than I kind of expected, but definitely feels like more moves are coming, especially because, if even I'm sure the whole LeBron
They have 15 roster spots taken.
like this is not gonna be the final product. Like they have 13 players on the roster. It's not gonna be this exact combination plus LeBron and Bronny. There's gonna be some other changes. I'm pretty certain of that. So that's the thing that came to mind, especially for the number to come up quite that high. There's gonna be some other things. I think other pieces move around to make it all fit.
Yeah, I like I said, it's not that I necessarily hate the deal. Like I'm just a little nervous about giving a guy 4 years worth of contract off of so little actual production. Granting that lack of production was not in his control. For whatever reason, Darvin Ham decided Max Christie wasn't going to play. And, there's only so much a player can do there when no matter what he does, he can't prove that he should be on the court out there more than, say, Cam Reddish. So, you do have that kind of going on. But I will also grant that, like you're saying, if Max does live up to the potential that I believe that he has, right? He's 21 years old, and is a very solid defender, a good catch and shoot 3-point. Like that's the kind of guy that just seems to pan out more often than not in the NBA. And if he becomes a legitimate 3-and-D wing, even at the 2 spot, that makes him a very, very hot commodity on a very reasonable contract. So I understand what the Lakers are looking to do there. It's just that I think people should also grant that it comes with a little bit of risk because we just haven't seen him actually produce in the NBA. I do want to really quickly, I know I normally do starred comments at the end, but because of the rush to get through yesterday's or yesterday, feels like yesterday, but this afternoon's show, I wasn't able to get to a few starred comments, and it's topics that we're going to be hitting on anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that I saw those and regret not getting to them. So the Grant trade, a lot of people are asking about Jerami Grant. So Gabriel asked, trading real assets for Grant, hoping that he will be impactful defensively while also trying to waste the MLE on Klay, is why this team is a joke. Somebody asked, John Sotelo asked, can't see the Lakers using a first round pick on a Grant trade. Well, that's essentially the holdup right now, is draft compensation. From how it's been kind of explained to me, the Lakers don't want to trade both of their first rounders that they're currently holding. And the Portland Trailblazers think that the Lakers should trade both of those first rounders. And the one thing that I would say kind of strengthens the Lakers' hand here is that, from what I've heard, Portland hasn't received very many, if any, competitive offers quite yet for Jerami Grant that would force the Lakers to up the at least draft capital that they've offered so far. I do want to ask you, though, Yosi, if the Lakers do trade for Jerami Grant, let's say it's Rui, Gabe, and a first-round pick, maybe a couple seconds and whatever. We don't have to talk about the draft compensation. But contractually speaking, if it's Rui and Gabe going out with Jerami Grant coming in, what does that do for the Lakers books moving forward?
Well, as far as this year, they can make that work, and depending on how much of a pay cut LeBron's willing to take, they could potentially still use the mid-level. Like maybe it could be he might have to take somewhere like 25, which is lower. A lot of people have been throwing out him taking 30 million, so he might have to take a little lower if he really wants to help the Lakers like fully maximize the roster under Grant, get another MLE guy. I mean, first let's see if the Lakers can even get a guy like Grant.
Yeah.
Going forward, I mean, this would kind of be their last big move for a while because Grant's got that big contract. He's going to be, it's like an average of, it's over 30 million a year. I think it's going to end at like 35 once that it gets to the last year. So this is kind of the last move for a while, unless LeBron's going to, because the thing is, if LeBron does take a pay cut, it only has to be for this year. He can re-sign next year up to the max if he needs.
Mm-hmm.
So if he, then going forward, it's like, is LeBron willing to be even more flexible as far as how much he's making to help extend this window? Because once you have AD and Jerami, and you still have some other pretty mid to high salaried guys, you're still going to be over the cap. And depending how much LeBron makes, you may or may not have any other exceptions depending on if you're over the apron or not. So yeah, I just think it kind of depends how flexible LeBron wants to be going forward.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder if he signs like another 1-1 this year, gives some money back, gives himself the opportunity to opt out at the end of this year and sign a bigger deal next season. But boy, gosh, honestly, it would be such a headache. I understand why he would do it, but just like, man, I don't want to go through this all over again. I to those who are curious and stuff, like, would I trade both? Would you trade both first rounders for Jerami Grant?
No.
I don't think any teams would, honestly.
Exactly.
And like, it's no point for the Lakers to basically negotiate against themselves for Jerami Grant. That, remember that the Jerami Grant contract that he's currently on was signed as a favor to Dame, and then Dame pieced out anyway. And so like the idea that like everybody, I think Grant's contract will look better under the new TV deal money when that kicks in, but it's still like $30 million for Jerami Grant. Like, Jerami Grant at $30 million or Kyle Kuzma at like 16. Who would you rather have? Or Jeremy
Yeah.
Grant at $30 million, or Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura combined for about that price. Like I just I like Jeremy Grant, and like my other concern there with Grant is part of the reason he left Denver in the first place was because he wanted to be on the ball, and it didn't work out with him in Detroit. And then he went into Portland and was on the ball a ton in Portland. Hasn't worked out for Portland either. I'm concerned about some of the habits that he's figured out while he has been in Portland and while he's been in Detroit and done so much losing over the last few years. Like, it really makes me nervous, trading real draft capital and trading real rotation minutes that are assigned to the salaries that have to go out. I'd be nervous. How high in terms of draft compensation would you go? Would you go like a first in a couple seconds, a first and swap? So how would you handle that?
Probably just one first, and I'd probably even protect it somewhat, like maybe like top 10-ish, lottery-ish protection, because I just don't think there's a better offer out there. Like the one other team that really came to mind as a potential grand suitor that made some sense were the Mavericks, and I don't think that's happening. It looks like they just signed
Yeah.
in Najee Marshall, who's probably replacing Derrick Jones, and they're going after Klay Thompson. That's it. They're not gonna have any room for a guy like that. So if so, I would just present this. Hey, this is the best offer I got. It's one first in our salaries, and if Portland doesn't want it, then they'll just have to hope for a better market in February.
Speaking of Derrick Jones Jr., I had somebody ask about him in earlier today in those super comments. No one is talking. I'm guessing that was supposed to be about Derrick Jones Jr. Do you think he's a good fit? I think yes. Short answer, because anybody who defends like Derrick Jones Jr. does is typically going to be a good fit. But it's a little similar to Jared Vanderbilt. Like I don't know, for to those people who watched Jones Jr. in that final series, Boston just stopped guarding him altogether. Like they just like were actively walking away from him when he caught the ball on the perimeter, and his shot got uglier and uglier and uglier as that series went on. His shot does look better than Jared Vanderbilt. I do think he's a better shooter there. But Yosi, I want you I want you to explain this agency rule thing that is a real holdup here for Derrick Jones. Yeah, explain the rule, and then I have some questions on the back end of it.
So I didn't even know about this, but apparently, so he Derrick Jones switched agents. He switched the clutch, and there's supposedly some rule that there's like a 15-day window that needs to pass before you can officially start negotiating with your new agent. So I think there was like multiple reports. I think Jake Fisher and Tim Cato both touched on it. Basically, he can't like actually negotiate a contract until July 11th. So clearly the Mavs are like, okay, well, we're not gonna wait on that. Like we gotta move on. Like so clearly, hopefully Derrick Jones has something. There is a team with a mid-level type offer lining up. We'll see. My concern with Derrick Jones is he's always had he like checks out all the boxes for like what you want physically in a basketball player, but it just never came together. And he had some highlights in Miami, and then went to Portland, Chicago, nothing really happened, and then finally he puts it all together in Dallas. But I'm a little skeptical he'll be able to repeat the highs of that. Is he an
Yeah.
NBA rotation player going forward? Yeah, but I definitely would have some concerns if I'm some other team, potentially investing like multiple years and mid-level-ish money on him, because I'm just a little skeptical. Like what he did with Dallas, it's possible it only works as well in Dallas playing next to Luca, and um, yeah, just we'll see. Like we'll see what the appetite is now, league wide for him now that he's very much available.
I don't think he knew about this rule when he changed agents when he did. But how does nobody in his camp understand, or his like previous agent, his new agent. How does nobody catch this? He's going to wind up having to be a free agent all the way, like no talks basically for another week and a half. Like in that time, I don't know if any team is going to wait for him. He, the whole point of performing the way that he did was so that he could cash in this summer. It's going to be really difficult to cash in this summer because everybody is going to move on. What? How does this happen? I've never heard of this happening, for one thing. So, like, to a certain extent, shit happens. But I feel like with so much money on the line, somebody like in his group has to be able to tell him, like, dude, wait, hold on. Like, your decision here on your agent has real ramifications. Hold up on this, please.
Well, I will say this: there is a way the Mavs could still keep Derrick Jones. You could sign and trade for Klay, sign and trade for Najee, and then keep that mid level for Derrick Jones. So I'd say there's like a 5 to 10% chance that's actually what's happening. That Mavs have this master plan, and that they're going to like be able to keep him. But yeah, I'd say just based on what's going on, it's most likely that's it. He's gonna have to just try his luck somewhere else. Hopefully, there's still some money available by the time he's actually able to negotiate.
Yeah, it is so crazy to see this take place and legitimately really like affect his market. I actually feel pretty bad for Derrick Jones Jr., who had that career year, had that incredible postseason run, was a vital part of a team that made it all the way to the championship series, and like his kind of reward on the back end of this, because somebody wasn't paying attention to these minor details, is his market is kind of bleeped. Like it's just like it really appears to be. So we'll see what his market winds up being on the back end of it. All right, so in terms of where we're at right now, Woj did report, I guess, for ESPN that he doesn't anticipate a Klay Thompson decision will be coming tonight. That seems pretty consistent with what I've been hearing. Klay wanted to have conversations with all of these teams first. While all that has been going on, all of these teams have been in contact with Golden State to see what needs to be done to facilitate such a move if Klay did choose them. Obviously, a whole bunch going on elsewhere. For the Lakers in particular, they are still trying to trade D'Angelo Russell. They're still in on these talks with Portland and various other teams around the league. And my question to you, Yosi, is if the Lakers were to, let's just say, and right now I would prefer they didn't do this, but if the Lakers just traded D'Angelo Russell into, say, Detroit's cap space, which they still maintain, what would that do for their financial outlook moving forward?
I'd have to see, but it just, again, like anything the Lakers do, there's always that caveat, like what is LeBron going to do? How much more, like how big of a pay cut does he actually want to take? I don't think they have cap space this offseason unless LeBron took something like ridiculously small.
Yeah, like the minimum.
But then you could, I guess, open up a little more trade flexibility to bring in like an expensive guy like Grant, and maybe you could bring in some more mid-salaried guys through some smaller trades, and definitely use the mid-level as well. So you open up some more flexibility. But I would say, if I'm the Lakers, probably your better path is to trade D'Lo and whoever else you're trading, get the players directly. I'm just not. This isn't the best free agency market either. Like I don't know what kind of. It's like in last year's was pretty bad. I think this one might be worse. So I don't know. I would just focus on trades. The trade market is where it's at right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, between this year's crop of free agents and this draft class, this is one of the uglier off seasons that we've had in a little bit. This is pretty brutal out there. Yeah, I'm with you on the trade front. An important note that I think we should make here on the trade front, because I've seen a lot of people just, saying like, well, just trade Hayes and Wood and Reddish into cap space, just get it all done. It isn't quite that simple because of a new rule in this new CBA with minimum contracts that I asked you about earlier today. Can you explain it and then explain why it exists? Because I will never understand why this is a thing.
I'm not sure why exactly it exists, but I think they just want to make it a little harder on the highest spenders from from making like barely making the minimum needed in salary matching to make some trades. So like the most prominent example I could think of is when the Celtics traded for Malcolm Brogdon 2 years ago. They traded Daniel Tice. I think that was the most expensive guy. He was making 8 million. Brogdon's making like 22 million. And then I forgot who else they threw in, but then they threw in three minimum guys. Like these are guys that they signed at the end of the season to multi-year deals, specifically for the purpose of combining their salaries to hopefully have a trade opportunity like this. And that came a long way for the Celtics because then they wouldn't have Drew Holiday had they not been able to do this Malcolm Brogdon trade. So for the Lakers, you've got these multiple minimum guys that the Lakers signed to these 2-year deals with player options last year, and I'm sure they're regretting it. They'd rather have the savings, try to get some other guys, especially because it's more than that veteran minimum. They could have like $1 million in savings versus having a normal veteran minimum signing this year.
Yeah.
So as far as what they can do with those guys, not much. You can maybe hopefully stack, like for example, D'Lo and Jackson Hayes, and now you can bring back like what is that, 21 million plus 8 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You can't add another guy on top of that. Who are the other ones? Reddish and Wood. So I think more realistically, then the Lakers would ideally maybe want to just move off them and get more flexibility below the aprons, because if they're going to be doing some trades, they're most likely going to be taking back more salary than they're sending out. So they're going to need as much flexibility below the apron as possible.
Yeah, because I asked you, I was on the trade machine and I couldn't stack veteran minimum contracts on the trade machine. I was like, well, maybe it's a first apron thing. And then I didn't see anything there, and then I was like, well, they aren't the second apron team, so what's going on?
But then
nobody can do it until December.
Yeah, only like the 2 months before up and running up until the trade deadline, you're allowed to. Because then the Phoenix Suns traded 4 minimum guys last year to get Royce O'Neal in last year's trade deadline. I don't know the exact rationale. I'll try to find out someday.
It's just a ridiculous rule. I mean, it's a ridiculous CBA. Like, to a certain extent, you can't logically explain the illogical. It's a stupid CBA. It doesn't appear to make very much sense. I can't believe the players agreed to it. I actually think, like we were talking about the market moving kind of slowly. A theory I had going into today was that it would be kind of slow because this new CBA appears to be forcing Moneyball on teams. And in Major League Baseball, you'll see free agents available way late into free agency because they think their market is one place, and these teams think that player's market is in a very different place. And it just turns into the staring contest that the player always loses. So, with things moving a little slower today, I don't think it's a direct correlation right yet. I do think eventually we're going to start seeing more and more and more of it. And I think at that point we would be able to talk about a correlation potentially. But right now, it's hard for me to not feel like we're at least feeling a little bit of the numbers crunch because of the new CBA. The Clippers cited it specifically in their statement, trying to get the league to investigate the Sixers for tampering. It was interesting to see that Rob Pelinka has talked about the new CBA. Everybody is feeling this numbers crunch, but the Lakers, still have to figure out a way to get something done here in the next, in the next few days. And we'll see what that kind of looks like. We do have a couple starred comments here to send us out with. And a quick reminder, hit subscribe to the channel. And anytime we get any kind of breaking news, I'll hop back on here and I'll break down the breaking news live, and you'll get notified that I'm live and all of those things. And the best way to make sure that you do that is to follow the channel here on YouTube or follow me on Twitter at Anthony Irwin LA. With probably more appearances here from Yosi, because he understands this entire cap situation way better than I ever will. But we do, like I said, have these super comments, which means I get to play this bad boy if I find it. No. Oh, shoot. Sorry. That's just a picture of Rob Pelinka at Disneyland today. Here we go. Here's the clip that I was looking for. All right. So the first super comment from this show comes in from Justin Tyndall, who writes, since it's being reported Klay won't take the mid-level exception, who are we going to sign with it? Also, Yosi needs to turn up his mic. We've been working on it. We've been working on it throughout the show. It's just sometimes StreamYard is really dumb. Like, it's kicked out Raj before. It's kicked out Harrison before. It's kicked me out before. Sometimes StreamYard just does silly things. But no, Yosi, if the Lakers, let's say the Lakers stay above the first apron, this is actually a scenario that we didn't talk about, I don't think, enough. That will require a smaller sacrifice from LeBron. It would, still allow the Lakers to sign a player in that $6-ish million range. And it would give them more financial flexibility going through the season. I think I lean more in that direction. Personally, I just like having financial flexibility over the course of the season. But from where you're sitting, what do you think of trying to stay above the first apron, not signing and trading somebody, because that triggers a hard cap under the first apron, not using the NTMLE, which would also trigger having to stay under the first apron? What do you think about the possibility or the rationale of trying to stay above the first apron, even and maybe even potentially hard capping yourself under the second, which they're essentially considering a hard cap anyway?
So with Max Christie back at the contract he just took, yeah, LeBron would then just need to take like a pretty minimal pay cut to have the taxpayer mid-level. But like, what kind of guys are we looking at? So we just saw Andre Drummond. He basically took that level of money with the Sixers. It's I feel like mostly centers. Maybe you can get like Goga Batadze. Just looking at my list of free agents.
Not the kind of guys he's going to take a pay cut for, though.
Yeah, like these guys aren't threading the needle. So personally, I'll just say this: like I would go for let's go for the bigger mid-level, and be hard capped to the first apron, and just have LeBron take a big pay cut, because if you can like, just the possibility of what we were talking about earlier, you can trade for a guy like Jerami Grant and use the mid-level. I think that's way better. What are some guys that you can get with the full mid-level? We mentioned Derrick Jones, if he's still available. Maybe not the whole mid-level, but like Gary Harris. There's also maybe not the whole mid-level Haywood Highsmith. I think he'd be a sneaky good addition for any team. So just some guys I would keep an eye on with like a good portion of the full mid-level. But then the thing is, like, so let's say you use the mid-level and LeBron takes a pay cut, and you're not like at the hard cap, you're like still kind of below it. You still have flexibility later to do trades. There might not be a trade now, but since you're below that first apron, you're allowed to take back more payroll. You're allowed to increase your payroll in the trade, take back more salaries, take in more salaries than you're sending out. And that could come in handy come the trade deadline. Maybe the market will change and there will be better opportunities then. So personally, like the fact that LeBron is willing to do this within reason, I would 100% go that path.
Yeah, I get it. I just, man, every time that the Lakers are hard capped at, well, frankly, anything, but especially the lower number between the two, it just becomes such a headache over the course of the year. Like, it just becomes such a nuisance that it's really like it's just really rare that it feels worth it. Like last year, for example, right? The Lakers hard capped themselves by signing Torian Prince and by signing Gabe Vincent. By bringing in both of those guys and using the biannual exception, they hard capped themselves at whatever figure it was. And over the course of the year, like that really figured into their decision making when, maybe normally they would have waived one of the centers when one of them got hurt and brought in a center when the time came and it made sense to bring in that center. Or, it really limited what they were able to do on the trade market too. Because, if they took a certain amount over whatever they were setting out, that trade was now impossible. So I'm almost always going to be on the side of spend more. Like, so do whatever you need to do to be able to spend more over the course of the season, because I do think there tends to be a correlation between increased spending on your roster and room for error, margin for error. Not actual like quality of roster. There isn't, I don't think, always a direct correlation between amount that is spent on a roster and how good that roster actually is. It just means that you could whiff on a couple signings and still be okay. Somebody can get hurt and you can make up for that injury at some point. And I think the point that you make, the most important one there, is that like LeBron isn't going to take less just so that the Lakers stay under the second apron. But if he does, like, so if the Lakers salary dump Russell and they just signed Max Christie to the number that they signed him, would LeBron even need to take a pay cut to stay under the second apron? I feel like you wouldn't.
Right now, I don't even think the Lakers are like in much of a much danger of exceeding the second apron.
Yeah, they tried not to be. They've always really tried to avoid that thing like the plague.
But he would have to. Yeah, I think right now with the Christie thing, it'd be a. Yeah, if they just dump D'Lo, then yeah, without getting anyone back, then yeah, I think he could just take his max. But I mean, then what are we doing? This team's just like not going anywhere.
Well, that might just be the reality anyway with Rob Pelinka making decisions. JJ Lobos writes, if we miss on Klay, we should go for Zach. If the rumor of a first are real, it will let us open roster spots and pocket three firsts later in the year. So I think it was Bobby Marks, who said that the Bulls are having zero luck whatsoever trying to trade Zach LaVine. And they are at the point now where they are apparently willing to attach a first rounder to move off of him. Zach LaVine makes $43 million this year. The Lakers could get there with D'Angelo Russell, Gabe Vincent, and I believe Rui, right? I think that was so it was. Yeah,
I think
so
they need to get to
makes
like
18.
I think
that actually exceeds
33 mil, something like that.
Yeah. So the Lakers could, pretty easily, especially if D'Lo is part of the trade, could pretty easily get to that $43 million number. They would give the Chicago Bulls a big expiring, which is something that they're probably looking for going into this rebuild. And if they could pocket a pick, let alone, like when I first kind of thought about it, I thought the Lakers could make that trade without giving up a pick. But if it means that the Lakers could potentially get a pick, that makes things kind of interesting. I can't lie. It's just I don't like Zach LaVine's contract as much as anybody. If you can get a first rounder by taking on Zach LaVine, that feels like an opportunity that you should really consider.
And that's definitely one where it's only tenable, in my opinion, if LeBron also like he'd have to take somewhat of a cut. But yeah, if you're getting an asset as well, definitely worth a meeting about it.
I know. I would probably say so. Yosi, I've taken up way too much of your time here for this time of year. I greatly appreciate you hopping on. I'm going to keep texting you. I'm going to keep bugging you. And if at any point I bug you a little too much, just say, dude, we should do this on a show and we'll do this again.
But also we just went 54 minutes and not a single thing happened. So
Like I said, man,
yours.
I do feel like we're in that Moneyball stretch. Like I do feel like I really legitimately feel like this new CBA has turned the NBA into the Major League Baseball. No, but I like I said, I greatly appreciate it. You guys all need to follow Yosi on Twitter. You need to subscribe to his channel here on YouTube and find all of his work and all of his cap sheet clarifications and clarity and all that stuff. Just absolutely an undeniable presence in this industry. And I greatly appreciate you stopping by, man. I really, really do appreciate it.
Of course, Anthony. I'm glad to be back on again soon.
All right. So that is going to do it here right now for the Lakers Lounge. But like I said, we are at that time of year where news breaks. And if as soon as I click end stream, we get more breaking news, guess what I'll be doing, everybody? So hopefully that isn't the case, because I would like to go and watch House of the Dragon. But just in case, hit that subscribe button, and I will keep you as up to date as you can possibly be. Until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Yossi Gozlan saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you. It could be 5 minutes from now.